What's going on, guys? I'm Watch Chair Go, and today we're here with my 1995 Mazda Miata, and it doesn't have any heat. And next weekend we're going up to Arkansas, Pig Trail. We're going to take a whole bunch of cars. Tyler Hoover's coming, a whole bunch of local guys, and we're going to go drive Pig Trail, stay up there, and just tear it up on the amazing roads in Arkansas. But Lamborghini's coming, and I think this needs heat. So you're wondering, why does the Miata have heat? I'll tell you. So one day I was out driving it, and all of a sudden I saw the coolant temp start creeping up, and I saw a little bit of steam, and I was like, oh man, something broke. So I wasn't too far away from home, and I noticed, like, I pulled away from the stoplight I was sitting at when the steam started. I looked back behind me, huge puddle on the road, of course, and I knew immediately it had dumped out all of its coolant. So I shut the car down, let it cool down, and I managed to just kind of limp it home by starting it and stopping it 15 times and letting it cool down for a little while. And when I got the car back home, I assumed the hoses to the heater core were leaking from behind the block because that's where the leak came from. And I just pulled those off. I went to O'Reilly's, bought a length of hose about 8 inches, and I bypassed that with, it runs from the back of the engine, just behind the back of the engine, over to the other coolant port right beside the exhaust manifold. And I was like, you know what, it's a race car, which is, it mostly gets used for track events and autocross and stuff like that. The top's down, it doesn't need any kind of heat or AC, even though it still has AC. So I just kind of threw that away, did a quick bypass, and filled it up with coolant, and it just poured coolant out all over the place. And of course what happened is the coolant bypass line that runs behind the engine from the factory had broken and it started leaking, and that needed replaced. So I got that new one in there, it's all fixed up, it's running fine, but now I gotta put the heat back. So without further ado, let's hook the heater core lines back up. On the NA Miata, the heater core lines are right here. This is my bypass that's on there currently. Here's the other one where we're gonna pull off right beside the exhaust manifold. It's still a little bit warm because we just drove it. And there's the other coolant port where we're going to attach the factory lines. I kind of held off on this because I wanted to replace every coolant line in the engine bay with silicone hoses. Mishimoto makes a really nice hose set, but I cannot find the coolant, the small coolant line set from Mishimoto in silicone anymore. I can only find like the main ones to the radiator and everything like that. So unfortunately, we're going back with OEM ones. And you're going to want the OEM ones because the hose routing is a little bit tight, and it cleans up the engine bay and keeps it off the exhaust. Here's the factory parts you're going to need. You're going to need the NA 75 61 211. It doesn't say which one it is, but we'll know which one it is because they only fit one way. And you're also going to need the NA 75 61 212. And you can probably find these for like $15 each. I know the dealership wanted $20 each or something, but I used my account at the dealership and that knocked a few dollars off each hose. So the total price for this was like $30. You'll also need some hose clamps. Hopefully you have the factory hose clamps. I think I have them laying around, and I also have them on my bypass hose. So let's make a huge mess. When we pull the bypass hose off, I'm sure coolant is gonna go everywhere. You might wanna throw a oil pan or something underneath the car to catch the coolant. So we looked at that really quick and just kind of the way the hose routes. NA 75 61 212 should be this line here, straight to the one by the exhaust manifold. It really shouldn't matter which way you go in and out of the heater core, but they're cut to fit, so whichever one they fit on is the correct one. And this appears to fit right in there, which would leave this hose, let's get these bad boys open, to go back behind the block here. So it looks like that goes right back here and like that. So that's how they're gonna hook up. Let's start hooking them up. All right, so we're gonna try to use my adjustable Nipex pliers, although these are the Craftsman knockoffs, but hey, it saves you lots of money if you buy Craftsman tools, and they're lifetime warranty, so they're better tools. All right, let's get this first clamp off. That seems simple enough. You ready to make a mess? You're gonna want to twist this to get it off, and it's not cooperating already. Okay, so we give it a little twist to break it loose here, and here comes the coolant, I would assume. A couple more twists, and we should have the hose off. Ooh, oh no. So not too much leakage so far. Oh, we need this clamp. Okay, we've got the clamp on the new line real quick, and we're gonna shove it on there because it's already dumping coolant out because of how much lower that is there. Oh, come on. And the new line is on. All right, that was not too bad. We just need to get the clamp on there, but we also have to pull this line off, and it's buried back here. This is actually the hardest one to get. The clamp for this line is pretty far back behind the head, so you'll have to do some acrobatics to get back to that clamp. Okay, getting these spring-style clamps onto the hose is always a little bit of fun because they're actually just terrible to use. But they work well on radiator applications or radiator hoses, so we're gonna put these clamps on the hose first. You just kind of open them up with your pliers, Knipex, whatever you're using, and run them probably halfway onto the hose. That one I definitely just put on there way too far. It needs to be about right there. Okay, we're gonna switch to needle nose pliers to get the back clamp off because of how far it is behind the head. So you're just gonna kind of stick your needle nose in there. It's gonna be very tight because you don't have the leverage that you do with nicer pliers. Squeeze it to death. And let's try to get just the clamp off here. There we go. Okay, it's coming off. I felt it finally break loose. Hey, and no coolant leaked out of it. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna pull the clamp off this big hose. Okay, one trick is to drop your hose clamp in between the cruise control solenoid and the airbox so that you can't get it back out and it ruins everything that you're trying to do. And then use your grabber tool to try and recover this thing, which is honestly a whole mission in itself here. Success! We got the clamp back. Now it's time for the second hose to go on. You just kind of slide it back into there and onto the coolant port. It'll take a little twisting to get it seated where it belongs. And now we're connecting the hose to the heater core. You might have to open up your clamp to get the hose all the way on. And use my needle nose to put the lower clamp on as well. And we are just about done here. Okay, we got the clamp slid all the way back on this hose behind the flange. That one's good to go. Now we just need to finish up this one. So let's switch tools here. Go back to these ones as we're not dealing with such a tight space. We're gonna have to get this hose on a little bit farther. All right, that one's on there really far now. And we can go ahead and hook up this side as well. Slide it back onto its heater core side. And we'll put this clamp on. Typically you have to wiggle these clamps a little bit to get them into their position. And now let's put this clamp on. A little wiggle, and that clamp is home where it belongs as well. Okay, as I said, you're going to lose a little bit of coolant doing this job. Luckily I had 4 hands here because Zach's shooting and also helping out with this. I got to hold the lower coolant outlet while we were switching the hoses all around so that we didn't lose too much coolant. Also working fast helps, so we just kind of pulled one hose off, slapped the next one on, and kept it from dumping all this coolant out. But you will be slightly low on coolant, and you'll need to refill that lost coolant. So you'll need to start the car and let the water pump fill the heater core with coolant, and then refill this after it refills the lines and everything else. It sounds like such a race car. Let's fill this bad boy up. Hoses are nice and hot, so we should have heat again. Let's roll. That is how you change the heater core lines on your NA Miata. That is it for today, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time.